The sun had just begun to rise over the city, spilling gold upon towers of glass and steel. Cars gleamed like polished jewels on wide streets, their engines humming a song of wealth and ambition. Vendors cried their wares, drums of metal and wood rattling, mixing with the laughter of children chasing one another along dusty alleys. Smoke from frying akara mingled with the scent of fresh bread from corner bakeries. Here, in the heart of the city, dreams and struggles lived side by side, dancing together in the early light. In one lane, narrow and worn, a mother bent beneath the weight of firewood she carried. Her back curved, her hands raw from the rough bark. The wood was heavy, but her steps were steady, each one a testament to endurance. Sweat glistened on her forehead as she moved slowly, yet with dignity. Each bundle she bore told the story of years spent nurturing, providing, and sacrificing. Though the city raced past her in gleaming cars and polished shoes, she was a quiet monument to love and resilience, her burden a symbol of both hardship and devotion. At the center of the city, a sleek black car purred to a stop. Out stepped a young man whose presence commanded attention. He was tall, sharply dressed, hair immaculate, and a smile that could charm the clouds from the sky. Yet in the gleam of his eyes, there was a distance, a shadow of the past he had left behind. Childhood memories of mud floors, cracked pots, and nights of hunger hovered in corners of his mind, yet he brushed them aside. His steps were precise, measured, every movement a statement of control, success, and wealth. The city recognized him as a son of fortune, a man who had risen, but the price was a quiet severing from the world that had once nurtured him. From the back seat of the car, another figure emerged, graceful and elegant. The fiancée's dress flowed like water over polished stone, her heels clicking a rhythm of refinement. She lifted her chin, surveying the city with eyes both curious and critical. Her lips curved in a polite smile, but there was judgment in the arch of her brow. The streets, with their uneven pavements and shouting vendors, were foreign to her, a stark contrast to the world she inhabited. Every glance she cast at the bustling life around her was a mirror of her expectations, smooth, ordered, and elevated. The young billionaire noticed, a pang of unease stirring in his chest, for he knew the worlds she measured with her gaze could not yet hold the story of the mother they were soon to meet. Farther along the dusty lane, the mother paused, resting her bundle against a worn brick wall. She looked toward the horizon, where the sun painted the city in gold and shadow. Her eyes were steady, reflecting patience honed by decades of sacrifice. Each crease on her face was a verse of her life, each scar a testament to her labor. The firewood, heavy as it was, carried more than warmth. It carried the unspoken love of a mother who had given all without complaint. She straightened, lifted the bundle once more, and continued her slow march, each step echoing the quiet resilience of tradition in a city racing toward modernity. As the car rolled past, the young man's gaze fell upon her. The polished world of luxury met the humility of toil, and for the first time that morning, the city's noise seemed to fade. In the curve of her back, in the strength of her hands, he saw a reflection of the values he had left behind: endurance, humility, love without expectation. And though his heart felt a pull, the polished world waited, the fiancé, the appointments, the promises of success. Yet even in that moment, the story of the mother, the firewood, and the street whispered louder than any car engine or city skyline, a reminder of the balance between wealth and humanity, ambition and morality. The fiancée's voice broke the spell. "Is this where your family lives?" she asked, soft but edged with surprise. Her gaze followed the mother, lingering just a moment too long on her labor-worn hands. There was a pause, a silent reckoning in the young man's chest, and the city seemed to hold its breath. The contrast could not have been clearer, elegance brushing against endurance, modernity skimming the surface of sacrifice. And in that intersection, the story of pride, humility, and family began to stir, like the first drumbeat calling all to witness what would follow. The narrow streets buzzed with life. Vendors called out from their stalls, waving bright fabrics and freshly roasted peanuts. Children ran barefoot between the carts, laughter echoing off the walls of sun-baked buildings. From a distance, an old woman carried her firewood, each step slow and deliberate. Eyes followed her, some with admiration, some with quiet envy, others with whispered gossip that floated like smoke through the alleys. "Ah, see how she still labors for a living," muttered a fruit vendor to his neighbor. "Even with her son in the big city, she bears the weight herself." "Some people are proud, some are stubborn," replied a neighbor, shaking her head. "But it is the city that teaches respect, or it will humble you quickly." A group of childhood friends gathered near a small open shop, their voices low but pointed. "He is rich now, living in tall towers," one said. "Does he even remember the mud under his feet?" The young man in the sleek black car froze at the sound. His eyes fell upon his mother, bent beneath her burden, sweat glistening on her brow. A sharp pang of guilt knotted his chest. He wanted to look away, to guide the conversation toward his fiancée, to maintain the polished image he had worked so hard to build. But the sight of her struggle stopped him. His hands tightened on the steering wheel, the sound of the city fading into the rhythm of his heartbeat. The fiancée stepped closer, her heels clicking on the uneven stones. "Is she always like this?" she asked, her voice carefully restrained. Her eyes flitted over the rough bundle of firewood and the worn sandals on his mother's feet. There was curiosity, yes, but also a shadow of judgment in the curve of her lips. He swallowed hard. She works hard. "Always has," he said, his voice tight. He shifted slightly, as if moving closer to her would somehow shield them from the truth. Pride warred with loyalty. He wanted to impress her, to show the life he had built, but the sight of his mother reminded him of the man he had once been, and the lessons he had learned under her hands. The fiancé frowned. "It's so different from what I imagined. She doesn't look like your world." He forced a small, uncomfortable smile, glancing away. "The world she knows is important. But it is not the life I lead now," he said, his tone careful, defensive. He stepped slightly between her and his mother, a subtle gesture of separation, as though to shield the image he wanted her to see. His mother paused, sensing his hesitation, but her eyes remained steady. She did not speak, but the weight of her gaze carried quiet disappointment, a question unasked. Can my son truly honor both worlds, or must he choose pride over family? The fiancée's gaze lingered, sharp yet polite, measuring the space between the past and present. Her judgment was silent but palpable, an invisible thread tightening around the young man's heart. He wanted to speak, to explain, but the words refused to form. Pride and love collided, and the street seemed to hold its breath. A silence fell, broken only by the distant calls of vendors and the clatter of children at play. In that moment, the first true clash of the worlds became clear, the humility of sacrifice confronting the polish of wealth, tradition standing firm against modern expectation. The mother's dignity glimmered quietly in the sun, and the fiancée's refinement gleamed sharply beside it. And the young man, caught in the middle, felt the first stirrings of shame and realization. Pride could not mask truth, and wealth could not replace love. He shifted his weight uneasily, glancing from his mother to the fiancée. His lips parted, but no words came. The community's eyes, the gossip, and the silent witness of the street seemed to press against him from all sides. For the first time, he understood, appearances could deceive, but actions, respect, care, honor, spoke louder than any polished surface or fine clothing. The mother continued her slow march, firewood balanced on her back, sweat and dust mixing on her skin. The young man's fiancée watched, expression inscrutable, and he realized the path ahead would demand a choice. Pride or love? Modernity or tradition? The street itself seemed to whisper the answer, as old as the city, as enduring as the hands that had lifted him through childhood. True honor lies not in wealth, but in heart. The sun had begun its slow climb, painting the streets with long golden streaks that caught on the edges of worn rooftops and the glinting hoods of passing cars. From every corner, the city breathed its busy song. Vendors hawked their wares, children chased each other, and the aroma of fried plantains mingled with the dust of the roads. Amidst this lively chaos, the mother walked with her firewood, each step deliberate, each breath a silent testament to her endurance. "Look there," whispered an elder woman to her neighbor, nodding toward the mother's bent back. "Even with her son in the big houses of the city, she carries her burdens herself." "Some pride is good, but some is a chain," murmured the neighbor, eyes following the firewood she balanced. "May her son remember the path that brought him here." Children paused in their play to watch, their laughter quieting as the weight of respect for age and toil settled upon them. Every passerby seemed to judge, admire, or envy, their gazes a subtle mirror of societal expectation. The young billionaire's eyes fell upon the scene, the polished shine of his life momentarily dulled by memory. He saw her, the mother who had fed him with her own hands, who had kept his childhood safe from hunger, and a pang of unease coiled in his chest. His hands gripped the steering wheel tighter, his jaw firm, as though trying to keep the shadow of guilt at bay. "She works hard," he murmured softly, more to himself than anyone else. "Always has." The fiancée's eyes followed his gaze. "Does she always do this?" she asked, voice delicate, laced with curiosity, tinged with judgment. She leaned slightly, her expression catching the sun, polished and exact. "It seems so unlike the life you speak of." He shifted, uneasy. "She values what we often forget," he said, carefully neutral, though his heart was anything but. He noticed the way her nose crinkled in surprise, the subtle lift of her chin that whispered criticism, and he felt a tug at the threads of pride and duty. "She looks so simple," the fiancé added quietly, eyes scanning the rough texture of the firewood, the calloused hands that held it steady. I imagined something different." He swallowed, the weight of two worlds pressing down on him. "Simplicity is strength," he said finally, trying to anchor his words in respect. Yet even as he spoke, his foot tapped nervously against the car floor, a small gesture betraying the storm inside. Pride wrestled with loyalty, image collided with love, and the city around them seemed to hum with attention. From the corner of the street, a vendor muttered, "The sun has grown tall, but the heart remembers its roots." A group of childhood friends nodded, their eyes sharp, their whispers carrying an unseen weight, a silent measure of judgment, admiration, and envy all wrapped into one. The mother paused mid-step, firewood balanced yet heavy, and looked up briefly. Her gaze found her son's eyes. No words passed between them, only a moment of recognition, the knowledge that choices would come, that pride could wound, that humility demanded courage. She adjusted the load, her arms steady, her back resilient. In her silence, a proverb seemed to speak itself. The river knows the burden it carries, yet it still flows to the ocean. The fiancée glanced back at the mother, her polished expression faltering just slightly. She straightened, adjusting her posture, a quiet reminder of the world she inhabited, one of expectation, image, and social perfection. And the young man, caught between admiration for his mother and the desire to please his fiancée, felt the first seeds of conflict take root. The city's heartbeat continued around them, the calls of vendors, the laughter of children, the distant honk of luxury cars, but in that narrow lane, a moral tension had been planted. Pride could tempt him toward denial, the allure of modernity could mask his conscience, but humility, honor, and the quiet weight of family waited, demanding courage. The story, as old as the streets themselves, had begun its course. He watched her struggle beneath the blazing sun, the firewood heavy on her back, her steps deliberate and steady. A tight knot of unease formed in his chest. Pride had carried him to towering offices, glittering receptions, and cities that knew only luxury. But now, facing his mother, the weight of his accomplishments felt hollow. "She's still carrying that load," the fiancée murmured, her voice clipped, betraying just enough judgment. "I thought someone would help by now." He looked away, forcing a polite smile, yet inside, his heart wrestled with guilt. The image of his mother, bent yet unbowed, pressed on him. Should I have helped her sooner? Should I show her respect before it's too late? Memories rose unbidden. Nights spent in a small, dim room, his mother's hand smoothing his hair, her tired fingers brushing crumbs from his cheeks after a meager meal. She had labored tirelessly, her palms raw from grinding grain, her voice gentle yet firm as she told him stories of heroes and villagers who thrived on honor and courage. Every lesson she gave, every night she stayed awake to care for him, had shaped the man he had become. "She did all of this for me," he whispered to himself, voice tight. His gaze fell to the bundle she bore. The firewood, rough, splintered, unyielding, felt like a mirror of all she had carried silently for decades. Pride whispered, "Focus on the car, on the fiancé, on the world you've built." Responsibility and love answered with the echo of sacrifice. "Look at her, honor her, do not turn away." The mother paused, sensing his hesitation, yet spoke not a word. Her eyes, though quiet, conveyed a story of resilience, of dignity rooted in decades of hardship. She did not scold, nor did she plead. She only held herself upright, as though the weight of the firewood could not break the strength of her spirit. Her suffering was silent, her endurance absolute, a lesson in humility and courage that the streets had long since forgotten. He remembered the night she had stayed awake, sewing torn clothes by candlelight, offering small portions of food so that he might eat first. Her voice hummed soft songs as she worked, weaving wisdom into each note, A child who honors his mother honors the earth itself. Each memory struck him like a drumbeat, a reminder that his present pride could not erase the love and labor that had built him from the ground up. The fiancée's voice cut through his recollection, sharper now, each word like a leaf scratching against bare skin. "I don't understand how anyone can live like this," she said, sweeping her gaze over the rough streets and the bundle of wood. "Why hasn't someone modernized this place? Surely he can't live in such a hardship." He shifted, unease twisting his features. Every comment was a reminder of the gap between the world he had created and the world he had left behind. Pride whispered, "Ignore her. This is your life now." Guilt whispered louder, "She is your mother. Honor her, even if it shames the polished image you wish to maintain." The city around them carried on, indifferent to the quiet battle within him. Children's laughter, vendor calls, and the hum of traffic became background to the storm of his conscience. The fiancé's eyes, sharp and calculating, lingered on his mother, raising unspoken questions about status, judgment, and what mattered in life. He clenched his fists, the weight of choice pressing down, to prioritize pride, or to honor the woman whose sacrifices had shaped him, whose dignity demanded acknowledgement. Each word from the fiancée, each step of his mother, each memory of love and toil, built the tension in his chest until he could no longer ignore it. The streets seemed to whisper, as they had always whispered in the stories of old, "A man who turns from his mother may rise, but he walks on a path of shadows. Honor her, and the light follows." He stood near the gleaming car, polished shoes catching the morning sun, yet his gaze kept returning to her, the mother who bore the weight of firewood like a crown of quiet endurance. A storm of conflict raged inside him. Pride urged him toward the world of polished floors and sparkling glass, where status was measured by wealth and approval. Love whispered of the mother who had given everything, who had built him from the soil and sweat of her hands. "She has carried that burden all these years," he muttered to himself, fingers tightening around the car door handle. "And I have done nothing but climb higher, forgetting where I came from." The fiancée's heels clicked as she approached, her gaze sharp yet composed. "She doesn't seem refined," she said softly, a statement laced with judgment. "How can a man of your standing have such a humble family?" He shifted uneasily, a flush rising to his cheeks. "It is the way she lives," he murmured, words tight. His pride waged war with his heart, and he stepped slightly away from his mother, a silent attempt to shield his polished world from her simple reality. The mother, sensing the hesitation, paused. She did not speak, did not scold. Her eyes carried a quiet understanding, a question unasked but clear. Can love and pride coexist, or must one bow to the other? Memories pressed in, nights she had labored by candlelight, weaving meals from scraps, telling him stories of courage and wisdom while her own body ached. Each tale had planted values deep in him: humility, loyalty, and endurance. Now, standing in the brilliance of the city, he realized how far he had drifted from those roots. Yet pride surged. He stepped back further as the fiancée's eyes scanned his mother's bent figure. "Perhaps introductions are unnecessary," he said, his voice firm, though his hands shook slightly. Avoiding her gaze, he turned toward the car, signaling subtly that he wished the world of luxury and social expectation to remain untouched by the burden of love. The firewood rested heavily on her back, each piece a symbol of sacrifice, patience, and endurance. Its rough edges and splintered would seem to whisper to him, "This is the weight of generations, the labor of love unspoken." Across from her, the black luxury car gleamed, the fiancé poised beside it, a monument to pride, status, and societal applause. The contrast was striking, almost cruel. Humility pressed against modernity, maternal devotion against polished expectations. "She is remarkable," a childhood friend had once told him. "Do not forget the hands that raised you." He felt that truth now, a heavy pulse in his chest. And yet, he hesitated, glances avoided, words left unspoken, a silent dance of denial that only increased the tension surrounding him. Pride had peaked, and he feared the consequences that might follow. The fiancée adjusted her scarf, smoothing the fabric, a silent reminder of her world, ordered, perfect, and untouchable. The mother's strength, quiet and unassuming, stood in stark contrast. In that moment, the young man felt the fragile threads of his dual existence pull taut, and he knew a choice must come, between honor and image, love and pride, tradition and the allure of modernity. He felt it before he could see it, the sharp, unspoken gaze of the neighbors, whispers curling through the alleys like smoke. "See how the son walks tall, yet the mother bends with the load," one murmured. "Does he not know honor?" another added. Each word, each glance, pressed upon him heavier than the firewood she carried. The fiancée's eyes did not leave the mother, her polished face hinting at disapproval. "How unusual," she said softly, her voice light but cutting, like thorns hidden in petals. "I never imagined a life so humble." He clenched his fists, jaw tight, words trapped in his throat. Shame crept in, burning beneath the veneer of his pride. Inside him, a storm raged, loyalty battling societal expectation, love wrestling with embarrassment. He could feel it, the weight of judgment, the eyes of the street, the silent expectations of everyone watching. She bent slightly under the firewood, one foot slipping on the uneven street. Time slowed. He hesitated. Should I step forward? Should I help her? Pride anchored him to the spot, but his heart thundered, urging action. His mother's arms trembled as she adjusted the heavy bundle, but her gaze met his, steady and quiet. No blame, only a question. Will you honor me or your pride? The fiancé stepped closer, voice polished but sharp. "Is she always like this?" she asked, her tone polite yet edged with judgment. "I mean, how does she manage alone? Shouldn't someone help?" He swallowed hard, chest tight. Every word struck him, a reminder of the gulf between his world and hers. He wanted to deflect, to step away, to preserve the image of modernity he had built, yet each glance at his mother tore at his conscience. Her dignity contrasted starkly with the fiancé's polished expectations, the firewood a quiet testament to a lifetime of sacrifice. The street seemed to pause, as though holding its breath. The neighbors watched, whispers now mingled with anticipation. The son's hesitation was visible in every twitch of his hand, every falter of his gaze. Pride demanded he ignore her struggle, love demanded he act. And in that pause, the moral stakes were clear. Tradition, respect, and family honor stood against the allure of judgment and modern perfection. His mother wavered slightly, catching herself against a wooden post, the firewood threatening to tip. He felt his stomach twist, shame biting deeper. Could he let her stumble, let her bear the weight alone, just to keep appearances? His fiancée's eyes, curious and assessing, made the question all the more unbearable. "Mother," he breathed, the words slipping out almost against his will. But pride held him frozen. Step forward, or step back. The city around them pulsed, alive with energy, yet in that small street, two worlds collided, the steadfast humility of the past and the alluring judgment of modern life, forcing him to confront the choice that would define him. He stood frozen, the glare of the sun bouncing off the luxury car, the polished shoes of his fiancée tapping softly on the street. And yet, all he could see was her, his mother, bent under the weight of firewood, a figure of enduring strength and silent dignity. The memories came unbidden, like drumbeats in the quiet of his mind. He saw himself as a small boy, shivering in the night while she worked by candlelight, sewing tattered clothes and boiling thin soups just so he would sleep full. He remembered her fingers brushing crumbs from his lips, the soft hum of songs she sang to teach him courage and humility. She gave everything, and I have turned my back, he whispered to himself. His chest tightened. Pride, the very force that had built his empire, now fought him fiercely. I cannot show weakness. I cannot let her ruin the image I've built. Yet every fiber of his being screamed for him to kneel, to reach out, to honor her labor and her love. She did not speak at first. Her eyes, deep with years of wisdom, met his. A faint shake of her head, a soft sigh, and her lips parted. "Do you remember the nights I stayed awake, child?" she said, voice calm, measured, carrying the weight of experience. "Do you remember what I taught you about honor and respect? You may have wealth, but you must never forget the hands that raised you." Each word struck him harder than any rebuke. She did not scold, she did not shout, her dignity spoke louder than anger ever could. Pride faltered in the face of her quiet strength. He remembered the firewood she had carried when he was young, the water she had fetched from distant wells, the small sacrifices invisible to the world but monumental to him. She had missed meals so he could eat, endured aches and weariness without complaint, also he could grow strong. The lessons, the love, the labor, they had built him, yet he had walked into the world thinking he had done it alone. His hands trembled. The polished exterior, the pride, the polished shoes and luxury car, it all seemed hollow now. He took a hesitant step forward, then another, the heat of shame burning across his face. Tears threatened to spill, unbidden, as he whispered, "Mother, forgive me. I have forgotten." Her eyes softened, and she reached a hand toward him, not in anger, but in the silent offering of forgiveness. In that moment, the weight of betrayal pressed upon him, heavy and undeniable. Pride cracked. Humility crept in, fragile but unyielding, demanding that he act not for social approval, not for wealth, but for love and honor. The city seemed to hold its breath. Even the hum of traffic, the chatter of vendors, faded into the background. All that remained was the sun, the mother, the firewood, and the moment where one man could choose between the shadow of pride and the light of duty. The street seemed smaller somehow, compressed by the weight of onlookers. Neighbors leaned from doorways, vendors paused mid-call, and distant relatives stopped their chatter. Every eye followed the sun, every whisper carried the invisible weight of judgment. "See how he hesitates. Will he honor his mother or the glitter of wealth?" someone murmured. The fiancée's eyes were sharp, assessing, curious. Her lips curved in faint disapproval as she noted the worn hands gripping the firewood, the sweat on her mother-in-law's brow. "She carries all this herself?" she asked softly, almost to herself, yet loud enough to echo in the son's conscience. He swallowed hard. The whispers, the gazes, the silent expectations of the community, they pressed upon him like the sun overhead. Pride wavered. Could he stand aloof while his mother bore the burden alone? Could he ignore her dignity for the sake of appearances? She looked at him, not accusing, not pleading, just steady eyes filled with the knowledge of all she had given. No words were needed. Her silence, measured and calm, spoke volumes. He felt every year of her labor, every sleepless night, every small sacrifice pour into that gaze. Finally he spoke, voice faltering, "Mother, I—" His hands hovered over the firewood, trembling. The fiancée shifted uncomfortably, her modern polish contrasting sharply with the humility before her. "Shall I help you with that?" he asked, reaching forward, shame and love tangled in his gesture. She accepted, nodding slightly, and he lifted the heavy bundle alongside her. Each step together was a silent vow, that family, respect, and honor outweighed pride and social appearances. The fiancée remained quiet, watching the exchange, her eyes revealing both judgment and surprise, yet powerless against the truth unfolding before her. The community observed, some murmuring approval, others still skeptical. He could feel the weight of their judgment, yet this time it did not sway him. His choice was made. Pride had cracked, humility had risen, and with it, the first threads of redemption. And yet, in the back of his mind, he sensed the consequences yet to come. The fiancée might not understand, the neighbors might whisper, and personal guilt could linger. Still, he had chosen honor over illusion, duty over vanity, and love over pride. In the quiet between breaths and the shuffle of feet on dust, the lesson of tradition, sacrifice, and moral courage was written not in words, but in action. He knelt slowly, the weight of pride finally giving way to the heavier burden of truth. The firewood in her hands no longer seemed a burden, but a symbol of everything she had carried for him, sacrifices unseen, nights spent awake, hands worn raw from toil. "Mother, I am sorry," he said, voice quivering. "I forgot what you have given me, the lessons, the love, the work of your hands. Forgive my foolish pride." She did not speak at first. She looked at him, eyes steady and deep, reflecting both the pain of disappointment and the relief of recognition. Slowly, she extended her hand, and he took it, fingers trembling. Together, they lifted the firewood, side by side, a silent acknowledgment of the bond that wealth could never sever. "I see now," he murmured, "that the world measures worth by silver and gold, by polished shoes and fancy words, but the heart, your heart, holds the true wealth." His gaze swept over the humble streets, the worn cloth of the vendors, the simple laughter of children at play. All of it held richness he had long ignored. The fiancée's lips parted, her eyes flicking between the mother and the son. She swallowed, realizing that the man she admired was not the one who flaunted wealth, but the one who could bend, acknowledge truth, and honor family. I see," she said quietly, almost a whisper, "that I have misunderstood what matters. The mother nodded, dignity shining in her calm voice. "Remember this, child," she said, her words measured, carrying the weight of years and the rhythm of tradition. "Pride may bring temporary glory, but humility brings lasting honor. True wealth is measured by the heart, not possessions. Betrayal brings regret, yet courage and humility can mend even the deepest wounds." A hush fell over the gathered neighbors, vendors, and relatives. Even the air seemed to pause, carrying the lesson forward. He rose slowly, holding his mother's hand, eyes shining with tears, and realized that he had gained something far greater than fortune: a restored soul, a reconciled heart, and a bond unbroken by the allure of modernity or social judgment. The fiancée looked on, visibly moved. Perhaps she would leave, perhaps she would stay, yet in this moment the lesson had been set. The firewood, once a symbol of toil and poverty, now stood for love, endurance, and the moral compass that guided a family through a world that often valued the wrong things. He lifted one end of the firewood with care, matching the steady pace of his mother's worn steps. "Let me help, mother," he said softly, his voice tinged with both remorse and reverence. She nodded, her eyes reflecting years of hardship and quiet endurance. Together, they walked slowly, side by side, each step a shared burden and a renewed bond. The firewood, once a symbol of sacrifice and toil, now became a bridge, linking past struggles with present understanding, weaving a story of family, honor, and love. Neighbors paused in the streets, children clutching small hands of elders, watching the scene unfold. Murmurs arose, not of gossip this time, but of admiration. "Look," whispered one vendor, "how the son honors the mother. True respect is rare." Even those who had once judged the humble mother in secret now nodded, hearts warmed by the visible act of humility and courage. The community witnessed a transformation. Pride bent before love, and societal admiration followed moral action. The billionaire's gaze softened, tracing the lines of his mother's hands and the firewood she carried. Memories of shame and denial flickered, but so did the clarity of redemption. "I understand now," he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. "Life is not measured by gold or silver, nor by the eyes of strangers. It is measured by the weight of your love, the courage to honor family, and the humility to learn from your mistakes." The sun shone warmly upon them, as if blessing the restored bond, the simple path beneath their feet echoing a journey from pride to enlightenment. He looked at his mother, now smiling faintly, serene in her dignity. "Every burden you bore, every sacrifice, I will carry them with you, in respect, in honor, and in heart," he said. She reached for his hand, and together they continued, a living testament that family, humility, and moral choice endure beyond wealth, status, or fleeting social applause. And so the streets, once witnesses to whispers of shame, now held eyes of respect. Vendors returned to their work with quiet smiles, neighbors spoke in hushed reverence, and the lessons of love, tradition, and integrity were etched into every heart present. Firewood, once simple wood, now symbolized a family's legacy, endurance through hardship, the power of reconciliation, and the triumph of moral courage over pride and social pressure.